This is the Theater Education Town Hall in support of arts education. I'm Corey Wilkerson with the Educational Theater Association. And I'd like you to just do a little bit of housekeeping. If everyone would please make sure your mics are muted. Just for this portion, we will have a time when we're going to be interactive, and we thank you very much for that. I'd like to turn the webinar over now to Julie Theobald. Julie?
Hello, welcome theater educators. It's great to be with you today. I'm Julie Cohen-Theobald, Executive Director of the Educational Theater Association. And I'm really glad you're here today because this is a very critical time for us. We know that with the new administration and many new policymakers, that presents an opportunity. We also have schools in crisis from this historic pandemic. And we know that theater is more important than ever when we're all in social isolation. Yet our schools are facing budgetary shortfalls and are going to have to make priority decisions. So all of this to say there is more urgent need than ever to have our voices heard. EDTA is happy to be a partner organization in ArtsAreEducation, a new grassroots arts advocacy initiative in support of arts education and arts education funding. Today you're going to learn about this national movement and how you can make a difference engaging administrators, school boards, and legislators to support your theater program and share your thoughts and ideas. I think it's especially exciting to see all these partner organizations coming together. It presents you an opportunity to collaborate with the other arts partners in your school, your music educators, your arts educators, and we hope that you'll come away today with some clear action steps that you can do right away to help us defend the importance of theater education. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you, Julie. Alexis?
Great. Thank you. I absolutely echo everything Julie just said. Hi, my name is Alexis Truitt, and I'm the Managing Director of the American Alliance for Theater and Education. I wanted to take a moment to welcome you all to this town hall and say that AAT is thrilled to be a partner organization with ArtsAreEducation, as well as a sponsor of this kickoff of the ArtsAreEducation Town Halls. I'm looking forward to spending this hour with you all as we learn more about the initiative and open the space for conversation. And now I'd like to turn it over to Corey Wilkerson.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you, Alexis. I really appreciate you helping kick off our town hall. And I'd like to take a moment to elaborate a little bit on what you both were saying about the urgency and the need for a coordinated effort to advocate for theater arts education. Julie, you mentioned the impact of COVID on our schools. I'd like to share some data with everyone here on the line to give us just a kind of idea of what we're looking at and maybe a little bit of a snapshot of what that impact could be. This is a snapshot in time. Things may be the same in your district, or you may be experiencing something entirely different. This was taken in August of 2020 when EDTA conducted a survey sent to the entire field with over 2,300 respondents. We'll be conducting another survey in this coming year to do the same collect the same kinds of data. What we learned was that the impact on programming and funding was already beginning to be felt in August of 2020. 65% of the responding school districts had already seen budget cuts to their theater program. 91% of our responding schools had seen productions canceled. Respondents also indicated that they depend on the box office revenue from their productions in order to fund performance programming. 34% depend on ticket sales for a significant portion of their performance program funding. So not only are theater programs vulnerable to budget cuts, the performance portion of the programming moving forward will be struggling to make up lost income, which made possible performance opportunities for their students the thing that they could do as a part of what they delivered. Theater programs have also faced increased costs to provide specialized PPE for instruction, to create socially distant spaces and performance opportunities, to sanitize costumes, props, and set pieces. These losses are mirrored on a larger scale with district-wide increased spending for COVID-related costs. In addition, it's still not really clear if increased support will be available for districts under COVID relief bills moving forward. So we're very likely facing nationwide budget shortfalls for education. Predictions are for at least a 25% decrease in school funding for 2021-2022. As we move into February, districts will begin planning their budgets for the 2021-2022 school year, and with greatly reduced funds. Now is the time for all who support arts education and theater education to speak up, to make certain their district remains committed to sustaining and funding theater education and theater performance opportunities. Moving forward into 2021-2022, we know that these national trends will greatly impact theater arts education. The budget shortfalls we've been talking about, learning loss and a focus on remediation and what that could mean for pulling students out of theater instruction, student, family, and faculty trauma, and a continued need for personal protective equipment unique to the performing arts classroom. So how do we mobilize our colleagues, teachers, administrators, students, legislators, and community members who believe that school-based education in theater and the other arts must remain available to students? How do we work together with our fellow arts educators in building this coalition? How do we reach out to our music, visual arts, dance, or media arts educators in our building? Well, one answer is to participate in the new national campaign, ArtsAreEducation. This is an initiative sponsored by the National Coalition for Core Arts Standards, which is a coalition of all the arts education associations. EDTA and AATE are partner members, along with the National Art Education Association, the National Association for Music Education, the National Dance Education Organization, Young Audiences Arts for Learning, the Arts Education Partnership, and the NCAS Media Arts Committee. The ArtsAreEducation campaign is a grassroots advocacy effort with a national scope that's seeking to harness the power of all arts educators and arts education supporters, and to offer some steps you can take on behalf of theater and other arts disciplines. And at this point, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Jim Palmerini. Jim is the Policy and Advocacy Advisor for EDTA, and he's also the campaign manager for ArtsAreEducation. And he's here to share the vision with you, along with some things you can do right away. Jim?
Thank you, Corey, and thanks to all of you for being here today. I'm really excited about sharing the ArtsAreEducation campaign strategies and tools. It says volumes that you are here regarding your commitment to theater education. So I'm going to walk you through the strategies and the tools that have been created in support of its core ask, which is the ArtsAreEducation and must remain central to a well-rounded education and fully funded to support the well-being of all students and the entire school community. We are asking school boards and community members throughout the country to support funding for school-based theater and other arts education programs.
We have, it looks like, Jim, you froze a little bit. I'll pick up with this slide, and Jim, as soon as we get you back, there you are. Thank you.
So we are laser focused in 2021 and 22 on the need to get the resolution passed and to get funding. But however, this campaign will pivot. It's built for the long haul. We will mobilize. We will recast, because that's what good advocacy must do. So the strategies. One, launch the campaign, which is what we have done. And now with a series of 6 virtual ArtsAreEducation Tuesday town halls, of which this is the first, each one focusing on a different arts discipline. 2, reach out to arts educators like yourself, asking them to sign the Arts Education Pledge. Urge their district school boards to pass the resolution. Encourage other community members and organizations to sign the pledge. Send a letter to their state representatives urging them to support arts education in their district. 3, reach out to school districts, asking them to pass the arts education resolution. Finally, 4, organize virtual Arts Education Hill Month in March. More about that to come in the next week or so. So, the Arts Education Pledge. number one. Before I say that, I like to talk about our tools as a three-legged stool of advocacy, the first of which is the pledge. We all know what a pledge is. It's a vow, it's a promise, it is a commitment, in this case, to supporting arts education for all students. To wit, the arts are part of a balanced education, providing America's learners with crucial skills and knowledge they need to be productive college and career-ready individuals. You can sign the pledge in the time I took to say that. Well, no, the pledge doesn't necessarily have the power to directly affect change in policy or to pass legislation. But I do believe that it creates momentum. When 100 pledges become 1,000 pledges, and 1,000 pledges become 10,000 pledges, and so on. The point is, your voice matters. Whether you are a student, an educator, a parent, an administrator, you are speaking up because you know how important arts education is for every student. So, onward we go. The ArtsAreEducation School Board Resolution. This doc and every subsequent one described hereafter is editable. That is, you can customize it. You can customize the narrative to list your own, include your own personal perspective, and actually to specifically target one organization or individual, the school board, or perhaps the school board president or an administrator. So there is, as we speak, Congress is looking at legislation right now that may result in a relief bill and funding that could greatly impact education. That's great. However, this campaign, national in scope, but grassroots in execution, is asking you to work at home, in your school, your district, your state, because that is where decisions are being made every day affecting your job, your community, and your students. So, passing the resolution, could you back up, Corey? There you go. Passing the resolution is your district's leadership's version of the pledge. Whereas all students have the right to an arts education that includes dance, media arts, music, theater, and visual arts taught by certified arts educators in partnership with community providers. Onward. State representative template letter. Now we're in the right place. All right, so this is easy. All you need is your zip code to pull up the names of your state district legislators. That's right, the people who represent your neighborhood casting votes that impact you and your family. There's a template letter that'll come up. It outlines the campaign's ask for funding arts education and education in general. You can customize this letter any way you like. This is a great opportunity for you to tell your story. No matter who you are, we've all got an arts education story. And in this group, you got a theater story. Because you know why the arts are in fact education, because they have impacted you or those that you know and love. Tell your story, hit the button, off it goes to your rep. So there you have the 1, 2, 3 trilogy of personalized arts education advocacy under the ArtsAreEducation campaign banner. But wait a minute, there is more. I know, it sounds like I'm selling you something, and maybe I am. The campaign tools, that's right, the Dear Educator letter. This is for you to reflect on and to share with your peers, your parents, and your community, helping to motivate them to engage in this very, very specific series of advocacy actions that I just detailed. As educators, parents, community members, and advocates, we must make our voices heard to ensure that arts education remains fully funded as a central part of a well-rounded education to support the well-being of all students in the entire school community. We all know that we are stronger together than apart, but even more powerful is reaching out to those who haven't necessarily supported or even understood the value of theater and other arts education in the past. We are the choir, we get it, but we need those other new voices and votes if we are going to affect culture change in arts education. In other words, so that the broader population believes that arts is education and not the old trope of fluff. That is, in fact, the grand vision of this campaign. Onward we go. The Dear School Board Letter. Remember when I said there is a need for the school boards to pass the resolution? Well, who do you think is going to do that? Who's going to convince them? That's right, it's you. You're going to do that, or your parent group, or the greatest advocates of all time for theater education. Who is it? It's students. We all know that. Again, this is a customizable letter in which you could tell your story, or perhaps that of your program, or your friends, or your family, with this core message. The Arts Are Education resolution asks you, the school board for Smith District, to resolve that the district will continue to fully fund and provide appropriate resources to support arts education programs during the 2021 and 22 school year, and cut off if it's down there and beyond. All right. So every good campaign in advocacy has talking points, and we got them. Schools and communities that recognize the value of arts education in the 2021-22 school year and beyond should ensure that arts education programs continue to be funded. Top of the list. Classes are offered across all arts disciplines and appropriately scheduled. Curriculum and scheduling designed to address learning loss includes the arts. Arts educators continue to be employed and teach in the discipline for which they were trained. Instructional resources that are critical to an arts program success should always be available. Professional development for arts educators should be appropriate and comparable to that of other subject area educators. Facilities built and furnished for arts-based activities should be used exactly for that purpose. Arts educator evaluation be done in the larger context of professional development and mindful of the new norms of practice adopted under the pandemic era. So that's a wrap up of the big picture of the Arts Are Education campaign. We're going to put into the chat the link to the Arts Are Education homepage and the link to the pledge, so you can go ahead and make your commitment to arts education. So with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Alexis, who is going to get you talking to one another. This is, after all, a town hall. Alexis.
Thank you, Jim. So indeed, we're going to go into those open conversations that I spoke about earlier, and we are going to break you out into groups of 6 randomly. And what we would like you to do is to collect one idea that you from the group that you share out when you return. So therefore, make sure to nominate one speaker from your group, and also we'll go in group number order. So please make note of what group you're in. And we will take about 10 minutes to do this. So Corey, whenever you're ready to open those rooms, that would be great.
Okay, thank you. And your prompt is, what is your biggest concern about theater education in 2021-2022? So welcome back, everybody. We are discussing snow levels in our locations.
Yes, we love our DC snow because we haven't had it for two years.
No, when then we got 2
It's
inches. I
crazy.
was just expressing my disappointment.
Yeah.
Well, here in
Yes,
Chicago,
it's
we got
true.
about 14 inches.
Yeah.
We
Yes.
got about 6, and my son up north in Vermont got about 12 or 14. We got a snow day, which isn't a snow day anymore. It's a remote teaching day. So
Right.
they
Yeah.
announced that yesterday at noon. So yeah, like it's no fun
Come to
anymore.
Orlando. It's 59 degrees and we are freezing at 59 degrees.
Oh,
Yeah.
How about 2020? Like 20 minus 0. That was yesterday.
No, it's supposed to be back in the 80s this weekend, so happy about that.
Come
Come on down. We're open.
Wow.
California, it's 75 here today.
There you go.
Nice.
Gay knows what's up.
Yeah.
Okay, Alexis,
Yeah, everyone back, I
I
think.
think everyone is back. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thank you all. I can only imagine that these conversations were so wonderfully rich and therefore incomplete. But we are going to ask you to share out, since this is a town hall and we do want to hear your ideas and thoughts on our topic. And so as I indicated, I was hoping you'd nominate one person to be your speaker. So I'll start calling on groups and have that one person speak. But in the meanwhile, if you have additional thoughts that your speaker isn't going to present, please feel free to put them in the chat for everyone to see. That would be really wonderful. So I would love to start with group number 1. Jamie's asking for someone else to report out. Any takers?
Suppose I could. I wrote down some notes.
Great.
I think we answered the question a little bit, but we talked more about possible solutions.
Oh, that's great.
Someone mentioned their biggest concern was that not only will theater education be cut from programming, but also that it may not ever return the way that someone mentioned that it had been after the recession in 2010. And so we started to talk about how we can possibly advocate a bit more, adding to the wonderful presentation that we heard. We talked about how some of it is an informational gap where oftentimes people don't understand what the arts can offer students, and helping them to develop the buzzwords of creativity and critical thinking and community and collaboration. And yet at the same time, even we can't assume that it's just an informational gap. Sometimes it's a lack of appreciation and a lack of respect for the arts. Sometimes it's because there's an assumption that there's a lack of jobs in the field of theater, and it's important to note that many different careers in theater include science and math-based careers. And sometimes people might look at those as exceptions rather than the rule, but there's an opportunity to harness stories of theater artists who are successful contributors to society, while also complementing that with the quantitative research of maybe numbers. And we were wondering if that was handy. Numbers of people that are actual success stories in the arts, and how you can make a career in theater, and how many people do that, and the scope of those jobs, as well as the economic impact of theater in the community, which we know is out there. That's definitely something that's easily accessible.
That's wonderful, and here to absolutely all of that. That was great. Group 2, what do you have? Should we come?
Okay, I am going to speak because Jay just sent me something, unless someone else from the group would like to speak. Jay had to run, so I am going to kind of summarize for us. And I've heard some of these already just in the other group. How will we adapt to meet the new world of virtual learning? How can we put the genie of Zoom and Google Learning back in the bottle, or perhaps transform it? North Carolina mandates, and here's another little bit of a solution. North Carolina mandates arts education, seeking resources for empowering a vertical progression for learners. Kentucky also mandates arts education at the high school level. How can we guarantee that students are receiving what they need, the career and life skills that are unique to theater in addition to the arts training? And if cuts happen, how will recovery be prioritized? So when the inevitable cuts happen, I actually personally think that's an important follow-up question. Okay, we see what's going on here. What can happen? What can happen next? How can we get back to a program that's strong and robust for our students?
That's great, Jane. Thank you. A lot to think about there. Group 3.
Hi, I'm speaking for Group 3. I'm Lauren Case. Hey, Jane. We're
Hey.
both fellow Kentuckians here. Obviously, we've said a lot of the same things: loss of programming, arts becoming disposable, financial issues where last year's shows, there's no funding now for, future shows. One of the things that I think we kind of added with that was not only the loss of programming, but the loss of a year of quality arts for our students. So that year of lost training, that year of connecting with these students, one of the and then just the value of the arts, that just diminishing and making sure that we can rebound from that. One of the other things we kind of threw in at the end of our discussion that I thought was great too is just teaching artists, and that those partnerships with our community artists, and continuing those with professional and local arts organizations and national arts organizations, performing organizations that are hurting now themselves because of this, and trying to develop ways that we can still make connections. We can invite artists into our schools, and all of those, the situations that revolve around then, now having other people in and out of our schools, getting our students out to organizations, and just really building and developing more of those partnerships. We said one of the positives, kind of piggybacking on the positive solutions moving forward, is that social and emotional healing aspect of the arts, and that we really need to capitalize on that as we move forward and really use ourselves. It was said in our group, use ourselves as almost a secondary guidance counseling for students that can, find this as some healing aspect when we get back.
Absolutely. That is great. Thank you, Lauren. Group number 4.
Hi, I'm Jana Heil from Maryland. Can you guys see me? Am I coming up? I think so.
Yes.
Okay. So we talked about so many of the same things. We talked about worry about programs being cut. We talked about worries of funding for next year. We talked, for me, my biggest concern is that the students will not be able to take the classes next year because they've done poorly in core subjects. Parents won't be willing to let them come into an arts program. And we also talked a lot about the SEL, the social emotional learning. And our friend from Boston talked about, we need you to help us find data that drives the fact that theater can be so beneficial or the arts in general can be so beneficial to SEL, so that that we can hopefully be kept.
Awesome. Thank you, Jana. Group 5.
That would be me. So hello everyone,
Felicia,
I'm
hello.
Felicia Brown. And so in my group, I guess I should also introduce myself and the other component. I'm the Regional Programming Director for the American Alliance for Theater and Education. So hello everyone. So in our group, basically like everyone was saying, the idea of funding, the lack of support, whether the programs would continue, dealing with trauma, all of those things came up. So then we, of course, started talking about possibilities of what we can do. And the major thing is to try and make your program indispensable. Make yourself so known that the district goes, oh crap, we can't get rid of them. That's one of the things that we talked about. And so how to necessarily do that, that social emotional learning is a major part of that, showing how that impacts helping students with trauma. I know here in New Jersey, we actually have a website, which any of you can go to. It's called, I'll put it in the chat real quick. But we have a website that connects our social emotional learning with our standards for the arts as a way to specifically be like, here, this is where they all line up. So that any of our arts programs could use that. We actually, and I think I posted it earlier, we have an organization that does what you guys are doing here on a smaller scale for New Jersey. Some of the other things that came up was the idea of using Title IV grant funding and tying that in with social emotional learning so that you could get funding that way, because that is available out there. And then the also idea of dealing with CTE programs if you're dealing with high schools, because there is Perkins funding through career and technical education specifically for theater and various aspects of the arts. And we are, for the Association for Career and Technical Education, they are specifically looking to build up the arts component. So those were some of the things that came up in our conversation.
Thanks, Felicia. That's really great information. I appreciate it. Group number 6.
That would be me. I'm going to do that one. It's good to see some old friends in the pictures here, and I'm not going to emphasize old too much. Okay, so we've got 4 things that we were going to bring up. Number 1, keep the scheduling flexible, because we're used to doing it a certain way. Then we got into Zooms and the COVID scheduling, and now we have to go back to hopefully a schedule that works for the arts. And we're especially concerned about the possibility of double downs. With hey, they haven't gotten this instruction in math, we need to double up their time in math, and of course that knocks out somebody. The loss of enthusiasm as productions were canceled, things didn't happen the way we wanted them to within the year. Suddenly then students, parents, teachers all began to lose that spark, that enthusiasm that is so crucial to making a program successful. And so we're really concerned that that's something that could be happening too. This is the lag in funding year, because education funding always lags 1 year behind. And so although everybody took a big hit in terms of the economy this year, it's 21-22 where I think the schools are really going to see that, and that's going to put all kinds of pressures. Which brings me to the one that I'm really concerned about. I don't want to hear any school boards or administrators saying we have to make hard choices. Because as soon as you hear them say that, that means they made an easy choice. The easy choice was to cut something. And instead, the hard choice is to keep everything going. It may be in some possibly reduced way, but everything has to keep going. And that's a hard choice for a school and administration to make. And that's what we want to hear them do, instead of saying that excuse phrase of we have to make hard choices. That's number 6.
Thank you so much, Ben. That was wonderful. Thank you to everyone. This is wonderful, just amazing, mind-boggling. I can't even find the words. I see things happening in the chat, so please continue to put things in there. But I will turn it back over to Jim Palmerini right now to wrap us up.
Thanks, Alexis. And let me just say that everything that I heard are things that we all need to be mindful of remediation, funding, scheduling, and just making our programs. I love the notion of making our programs essential. In other words, that to be able to ask your community, would they let your program go away? And you want to make sure that they will not let your program go away. Social emotional learning, all of these things are at play, which is why this campaign became into existence. Because as Ben said, 2021-22 is the year in which the pandemic and the economic downturn really comes home. And the other thing I would say, we're wrapping up, is that we all know that schools in high poverty districts, schools with high numbers of students of color, will most immediately be impacted by those cutbacks because of that desire for mediation to make up learning loss. And what I say is there is learning loss in the arts as well. And we need to be vigilant. And as Ben said, push back against that making of the easy choice. So at that, you are your own best advocates. The campaign is working hard to support you with coordinated outreach to the individuals and institutions who are empowered to impact your jobs and the theater students that you teach. As arts educators, you and everybody else who supports theater education for all students have to really actively engage administrators, school boards, legislators, and urge them to continue to support your theater programs. I heard someone say, once a program goes away, it is so difficult to get those back, and that is so true. So we need to really push and hold the line. So now, this is what you can do. You've heard the spiel, and I'll wrap it up with this. Visit the ArtsAreEducation website. And yes, I will put the link back into the chat. Sign the pledge. I have put both of those into the chat. They are there. You can sign the pledge now. Reach out to your school board. And by the way, I realize that could be problematic for some educators, but you don't have to be the person at the school board table all the time. Find out who your supporters are and ask them to act on behalf of your community and your school. Write your state legislators. This is so easy to do. Everybody knows their zip code. Write your legislator, put your story in there. Tell that story of success. What are those exemplars of your program, of your students, of yourself? Down the road, the website may begin to curate some of those stories. So more on that another time. So at that, I just want to thank my co-presenters, Corey and Alexis and Julie at the outset, and all of you. You know, I am so grateful that you are here. And what I would ask you to do is to now in turn reach out to others within your sphere, your ecosystem, and share this campaign and the passion that you have brought to the table today. I put my email in the chat. You can reach out to me. I would ask Corey and Alexis to also put their emails in the chat. And if you want, right now, I'm just going to suggest this. If you want the PowerPoint to PDF, you know, why don't you just reach out to me and I'll provide it. I will take care of that. That's easy. So with that, and Julie has put her email in there as well. Thank you, Julie. I would say good night, and I will see you in the halls of your school at the school board meeting. At that.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for your amazing ideas and solutions and conversation in the chat. Such a rich dialogue and so very helpful to this campaign. Thank you.
Thanks for your proactivity, for choosing to be here.
Thank you, Julie. Alexis?
Thank you all for coming tonight. This was wonderful, and it's just the beginning. So I look forward to doing more with you in the future.
Okay.